So, I have a story for you today. A poem, if you will. In the realm of code and digital might, a tale unfolds a cyber fight. Compromised accounts, secrets laid bare, resetting passwords, but did they dare? Heroes emerged, a wizard so wise, to thwart the hackers with a new surprise. Invalidate sessions, the secrets untold, logging out, revoking a spell to hold. No more could they linger, no more could they roam. Their dark deeds unraveled, no digital home. Remember, dear folk, when danger does loom, invalidation of sessions seals hackers' doom. Today we're going to be talking about two stories, specifically cybercriminals flooding the dark web with X or Twitter gold accounts, and the other one is Google password resets not being enough to keep hackers out. Learn about a vulnerability that kept hackers going back in after a password reset, and what you can do to make sure that doesn't happen, or at least what they did to make sure that the hackers got kicked out. Today we're facing an unprecedented array of data breaches, hacking attempts, and surges in digital crime. Why is there such a widespread amount, and how little is noticed in our everyday lives? Malware, dark sites, brute forcing, 0 days, script kiddies, and nation-state hackers are all on the rise. Learn more about the threats we face and gain a bit more knowledge than yesterday. Hey everyone, another episode of Exploit Brokers is coming to you now. Alright, let's dive into the first story by Dark Reading. Cybercriminals flood dark web with X, Twitter, gold accounts. Verified accounts for celebs and organizations deliver a deep vein of cybercrime riches for crooks. What does that mean? So let's jump into it. Cybercriminals are taking over gold accounts on X, the social media service formerly known as Twitter, and selling them on the dark web for up to $2,000 a pop. Now, that's according to researchers from CloudSec, which uncovered a gold rush, as it were. What's going on is you have a bunch of criminals who are trying to brute force using password brute forcing or stealing credentials through malware or other ways that hackers can get into accounts, turning around and then selling those accounts to pretty much criminals who want to try to dump out whether crypto scams or stuff like that, right? So if we go into the section on it called Cybercrime Riches via X Gold Accounts, it'll actually touch on that. So, and I quote, dark web marketplaces are flooded with advertisements selling Twitter gold accounts, according to the research firm released this week. Prices range from $35 for a basic account to $2,000 for accounts with large followings. The researchers illustrated the danger to organizations from the trend with a compelling example from September. Cyber attackers were able to take over an X account belonging to Vitalik Buterin. I'm probably butchering that, the co-founder of Ethereum. They then tweeted out an offer for purportedly free, non-fungible tokens, NFTs, with a malicious link embedded that redirected users to a fake website designed to drain cryptocurrency from their wallets. And I quote, despite being active for 20 minutes, the hackers managed to siphon off a staggering $691,000 in digital assets before removing the fraudulent post, according to the analysis. So, what happened is you have criminals that are taking advantage of these huge followings, right? Some accounts have upwards of millions of accounts that are being followed. We've seen similar stuff happen on YouTube where if an account's taken over, all the videos get taken down, a malicious live stream goes on claiming to give out free Bitcoin. I believe one was even involving Elon Musk on YouTube. We're just seeing that same kind of attack happening now on the Twitter space or the X space, where you have criminals that are taking these compromised accounts and then posting malicious links, posting scams or fraudulent giveaways or stuff like that. And then they turn around and they steal from the victims, right? You download something, you log in, a malware is dropped on your system or your credentials are phished, something happens where now attackers are given access to your accounts and your money is gone, or your passwords or your data or something is gone that they can use to then make money off you. I mean, in just 20 minutes, right, they were able to steal $691,000 in digital assets. Now, if these were NFTs that were stolen, that's debatable, but when they say digital assets, I'm thinking, and the fact that it was siphoned off wallets, I'm thinking this is something like people who had Ethereum or Bitcoin or one of the other altcoins, and they pretty much took the money out of the bank, to more or less put it that way. Now, how to protect against it is, that's how they're kind of going over it. They recommend strong passwords to prevent against account compromise, basic cybersecurity, and some advanced cybersecurity. I don't know if you would call it advanced, but at least some basic is needed here, right? Don't reuse passwords. Don't use very simple password 1234. If that's your password, please change it yesterday. And things of that nature. Right now, when you're talking about malware that steals credentials and then they use this to get into Twitter accounts, that's a little bit harder. You have to try to make sure you don't fall for clicking links or malicious links. You have to make sure you don't get malware downloaded, right? If that was easy, then we would all do it. But those are the two main ways that I'm aware of, and what this article is stating, how attackers or hackers would get into a compromised account to then run these phishing attacks. And if you see something on Twitter that looks too good to be true, whether it's offering something for free, you know, Elon Musk is not going to offer you free coins. A lot of the major people, or most people, will not offer others free cryptocurrency. That's just not something that normally happens. Maybe there's one or two legit people who do it for giveaways for some real reason, but most of them, I can assure you, are probably not real. Proceed with caution. So that's one of the articles, and it's pretty interesting. One thing that I find extremely interesting, actually, before we move on to the next one, is we're seeing a shift of common scams more and more using the credibility of social media and other platforms to try to get people to click links or to give up their data. It's kind of the same song and dance. It used to be email attachments, or it used to be Word docs, which are still prevalent, right? You still have macros and other stuff that happens in Word docs. But you see this stuff happening, and it's kind of a reiteration of the old stuff, right? You have criminals that are trying to steal, and the methods that they use just become a little bit more sophisticated, or they are using a different paradigm or a different method, but the end goal is the same, right? They're trying to make money. If there was no money in cybercrime, there would be no cyber criminals, mostly. And the fact that now they're taking over Twitter or X accounts shows that they know people want authority. They want somebody they want to be able to get to somebody using trust, because that's kind of the end all, right? You won't click on something if you don't trust it. If you're following a credible account and they're offering you X thing for free, of course you're going to click it, right? Be careful. And as these things ramp up, it's going to become more prevalent. It's going to happen more on YouTube, Twitter, any social media that becomes popular is probably going to be probably going to be vulnerable to this because it's authority, right? All right, let's jump into the next one. In an article by The Register, Google password resets not enough to stop these info-stealing malware strains. Now every miscreant is jumping on Big G's OAuth account security hole. Mouthful, but hey, that's what's going on. Let's jump into it. A zero-day exploit of Google account security was first teased by a cybercriminal known as Prisma in October 2023, boasting that the technique could be used to log back into a victim's account even after the password is changed. Now, a lot of you may be familiar with the old adage, if your account gets compromised, reset your password. The reason that works is when your account or your password is compromised, it generally means that they stole your username and password. So your password is password1234 with a username of user. They can log in with that, and you change password1234 to password4321. Cool, it's a different password. Their old login information is no longer going to be useful. That's the way that most people think of it, and the way that it usually is for a lot of credential stealing attacks or credential stealing based attacks. Now, moving on, since then, developers of InfoStealer malware, primarily targeting Windows, it seems, have steadily implemented the exploit in their code. What does that mean? You have a lot of companies that, as they implement new features, there's a new package, a new AI model, or a new tech that they want to roll out to their customers. Well, malware developers kind of have the same thing, right? You have this new piece of tech that can steal information or helps you get into a system or help you remain stealthy for longer. They're going to roll it in because they're ultimately a business, an illegal business, stealing, but it's kind of a criminal enterprise, as you will. The total number of known malware families that abuse a vulnerability stands at 6, including Gluma and I'm totally going to butcher this, Rada-Amanthais, while Eternity Stealer is also working on an update to release in the near future. Okay, I'll keep going right now, but this is the part that I find just kind of interesting and comical from a developer perspective. You have a lot of people who think that criminals and hackers, they just create whatever and they're just trying to steal your stuff. And that is true. They are trying to steal your data and your money and whatever they can. What I find interesting is you have a lot of these malware developers and cyber criminals that run this like 100% legitimate organization. They have marketing, they have sales, they have development timelines, they have funnels, they have feature updates to sell to their customers or feature updates for their own platform. It's not too exaggerated to say you'll see advertisements where like, hey, you steal 20% more passwords. I haven't seen that, but I would not doubt it that probably exists somewhere. And it's stuff like this, Eternity Stealer has an update to release in the near future. That sounds almost like when you go to a website, it's like, hey, we're about to roll out adding friends that you never knew you had. I don't know, just some random feature from some social media website. So, moving on. Eggheads at CloudSec say they found the root of Google account exploit to be in the undocumented Google OAuth endpoint multi-login. To break that down a little bit, whenever you have an endpoint, is the best way to say is there's an API, right? There is a way that programs can talk to a server or talk to something. When you implement OAuth, you're not rewriting OAuth in your application as much as you're reaching out to Google's APIs and be like, hey, I need you to validate this account for me. And then there's ways to roll that out. I vaguely looked into it, but I haven't implemented OAuth myself at this point. I probably would have done that some point later. Who knows? And what's going on is specifically the multi-login endpoint, which means this one method, this one function is vulnerable in some manner. And they talk about that later in the article, but we'll get to that momentarily. The exploit revolves around stealing victim session tokens. A session token is when you go, instead of having to put in your username and password every time you send a request, because HTTP is inherently stateless. That means from one request to another, you don't know who you're talking about. It's the equivalent of going up to your friend, saying hello, and they're going to reply hello, and you're going to say, how are you? And they're not going to know who you are, because every time you say something, that's a brand new thing. So, not the best example, but that kind of illustrates the point, right? So, hi, my name is Laudo, for example. And then you'll say, hi, Laudo, and be like, how are you doing today? They're going to be like, cool, I'm good. Who are you? And you're going to be going down that path, because otherwise you'd have to re-enter your username and password for every request. Nobody wants to do that. So sessions, I know this is a very long way of saying what sessions are. Sessions is a way for you to get this key that you can send with every request to the server. And the server has session management, and they know, hey, this token ABCD, belongs to Laudo. So when I say, how are you? You can then correlate that session to be like, okay, that's Laudo. He already said hi to us. He's already authenticated. Cool. And that's important, right? Because if you and I are having a conversation, I don't want to be introducing myself for everything. It's just kind of, you think about web communications like normal communication between two humans. There's certain things that you are inherently knowledgeable about. You see somebody, so you know who you're talking to. That doesn't happen on the web. Moving on, I know that's a very long explanation, but I'm going to scroll down mainly to the update, because this is the part that kind of got interesting. I won't bore you with some of the technical details. Google has confirmed that if you've had your session token stolen by local malware, don't just change your password, log out to invalidate those cookies and or revoke access to compromised devices. This goes back to kind of that poem, that story that I said at the beginning of the episode. When they steal a password and you change it, that's great. You've now cut off the way they log in. But in this case, they're using sessions. which means that you changing your password doesn't necessarily kick out the previous sessions. That's up to the server and how they implement it, right? They might have 12 hours before it expires. They might have 30 days. They might never let it expire. So in this case, Google's saying, hey, okay, you changed your password, that's good. Go and validate the cookies. Go revoke access to the compromised device and then re-authenticate to get a new session. So you get a new entry in that communication for the server to know who you are. Pretty straightforward, right? If they got 2 or 3 session cookies, invalidating all your sessions is just the best way for this kind of attack. Now, Google at some point in the article even acknowledges that this kind of attack is something that they've seen before. It's not super brand new, it's just not something you see often. So guys, that was extremely interesting. I thank you for tuning into another episode. Please be sure, if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe and the bell icon. If you're listening to this on a podcast, then please subscribe to wherever you listen, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other podcast platform that you're listening from. This has been Laudo with Exploit Brokers, and I will see you in the next one.